Chris Starwald is Fox News politics editor and my co-host on the I'll Tell You What podcast. Of course, you got to download that one. Take a listen, Chris, if you will, to Congressman and Chairman Cummings on the impeachment question.
The fact is that I think we have to be very careful here. The American people, a lot of them clearly still don't believe that President Trump is doing things to destroy our democracy and has done a lot of things very poorly. I think even if we did not win, possibly, if there were not impeachment, I think history would smile upon us for standing up for the Constitution.
So that's one view, Chris, but I wanted to read one other thing to you. This is in the New York Times yesterday. Jennifer Palmieri, who's been involved in Democratic politics for a long time, and she was part of the HRC, Hillary Clinton campaign. She said this: "We reinforce his Teflonness by buying into this. Whether or not he's Teflon is up to you as a member of Congress. And look at the moment we're in. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you stop pursuing what Mueller is putting in front of them, of course voters aren't going to think it's important. Voters respond to leadership." So two different perspectives there. Chris, what do you think will happen on the conference call today?
Well, I don't know that those two worldviews are diametrically opposed or mutually exclusive.
True.
The reality is, of course, Democrats are going to continue to hold hearings on all of the things. Everything is going to have a hearing, and everyone will testify, and Mueller will testify, and there will be, the president eventually is going to see his tax returns turned over to Congress. All of these things will happen, and they all can happen without an impeachment. Impeachment carries its own problems. It carries its own political baggage. You can have all of those benefits for political benefits for Democrats without embracing the downside.
Josh Kay, as we know him, Josh Kroshar, of course, of National Journal, he wrote, one of the most reliable maxims in politics is that the party that's divided is the one that's losing. And on the issue of how to react to the report, the Democrats are split on the direction going forward. Do you think that Nancy Pelosi can help, if there is a split, correct that?
Here's the deal. Democrats had been helped. The Democratic leadership, or in fact, the majority of Democrats had been helped by, well, we're waiting for Mueller, waiting for Mueller, waiting for Mueller, waiting for Mueller. Well, now that Mueller's here and we have the report, and soon Congress will get to see even more of the report, as they speak to radicals, as they speak to those who say, no, we have to impeach now, we have to impeach, they don't have that same tool in their bag. For a long time, Pelosi could say, we're not going to do anything until after the report's in, and then we'll make a judgment. Now the pressure's on. They're going to force them to make a decision, and that puts the majority of Democrats in an uncomfortable position.
And I think of the congressional Democrats as separate, for the most part, from the 2020 Democratic candidates. I want to bring up a couple of things. First, we did hear from the Pittsburgh Gazette telling us that Joe Biden, the former vice president, does plan to announce his 2020 campaign in Charlottesville, Virginia on Wednesday, and then he will hold a rally in Pittsburgh in the afternoon and another one in Philadelphia at the Art Museum there. Your quick thoughts about that, and then I'm going to ask you about this new poll.
Joe Biden's going to prove to America and prove to Democrats he can win Pennsylvania. He can win those voters that Donald Trump took away from Democrats in 2016. That's going to be the centerpiece of his argument. So it makes sense that he's going there. Plus, he can get a Permane sandwich. So it's all upside.
Well, I know. And in Charlottesville, Virginia, do you think Terry McAuliffe, the former governor of Virginia, is part of this campaign?
I'd say I would be surprised if he didn't have some role to play. That guy's raised a lot of money for a lot of Democrats over the years.
And he decided last week not to run himself. I wanted to show you this last poll, the Granite State poll. This just came out. Okay, this has Bernie Sanders at 30%, Joe Biden at 18%. Of course, he hasn't announced yet, but still notable. Pete Buttigieg up to 15%, and you see Elizabeth Warren there at 5%. I just want to show you something else. This is that same poll from August of 2018. And look at that. Pete Buttigieg wasn't even on the radar screen then. He didn't poll. I don't think he'd even announced. But Elizabeth Warren at that point was at 17%. Today she's at 5%. What's happening there?
Look, this is the same woman who over the weekend released a thought piece on how she's a big Game of Thrones fan. This is the only 2020 Democratic candidate who had on Friday went right to impeachment. She went right there. The death throes of the Warren campaign are painful to watch. This is a state where she must win. She must win in New Hampshire.
Yeah, these are kind of her people, too, right? I mean, if you're up there in New England.
She represents the neighboring state. These are people in the Boston media market. This is a must-win place for her. 5%. Holy crokinole, 5%. She's losing to the mayor of South Bend, Indiana in New Hampshire. That's a no-go.
All right, Chris Dyer, well, we appreciate you joining us on this Monday.